As someone born and raised in Manila, this city never ceases to surprise me in both good and bad ways. And for someone who has yet to visit Manila, I hope this presentation can offer interesting insights, and I hope you'll join me as we walk through its streets in search of creativity. Manila has earned a reputation for its epic traffic jams, its politics, and as an overall chaotic city. But as they say, there is order in chaos, although order can be a very relative term. On my part, it is a city that has given birth to my creative instincts, and also the city that I both love and hate. 16 cities actually make up what is known as Metro Manila, and for this pecha kucha, I am turning my focus to two cities as these are the two places where I'm almost always at for either work or play. And by doing this, I can give you a sense of how I live within Metro Manila together with the rest of 13 million other Manileños. So at any day, I can be at either Manila or Makati or sometimes both, and seemingly these two cities occupy the opposite ends of a spectrum. As such, they're perfect to examine not only because of the contrasts and tensions they present, but also of the hidden connections that may not be as visible at first. My walk starts with a car ride. Our first stop is Quezon Bridge, designed by one of the first generation Filipino architects, Juan Arellano, in the 1920s. Even as a child, the bridge's design and steel construction have always enthralled me, and it remains to be one of my favorite features in Manila. At the base of the bridge is a grand dame of Art Deco buildings, the Metropolitan Theatre, which is undergoing massive restoration now after decades of being closed to the public due to its sorry state. This was the first building I fell in love with. I was around 10 or 11 and way too young to even know what Art Deco is. With the Met, I can actually trace my love for historical architecture, and with Art Deco specifically, which would turn out to be a constant inspiration for my designs today. One of my goals when I was growing up was to buy the Met and restore it together with the Luneta Hotel, one of the few remaining Beaux-Arts buildings in Manila, done in the French Renaissance style. This is Intramuros, what used to be the original capital of the Philippines during the Spanish colonial era. Cradled within its walls today are several universities, including mine, as well as Escuela Taller, a school and workshop that trains its students on the techniques in the restoration and conservation of historic architecture around and outside of Manila. Manila is also home to several museums, including the National Museum, which houses the artworks of Filipino masters both old and new and serves as a venue for various design exhibitions. However, I find that in Manila there is less of an attempt to make art more accessible to the ordinary person and thus making it far removed from everyday experience. Now, just beyond the walls of Intramuros is the Binondo district and the famous Escolta Street, which used to be Manila's high street at the beginning of the 20th century. As a kid, I remember my mom would regale us with stories about this once famous district, but much like the rest of Manila, it is one that has seen better days, and the streets now a busy jungle of people, vehicles, and electric cables. Escolta used to be the playground of some of the early modern Filipino architects, and yet for a city that banks much on history, it is regrettably turning its back to it, some of its heritage structures in danger of being torn down. Advocates coming from the creative sector have then started to take steps to preserve its treasures and make the district once more relevant to a new generation. One of them is 98B, a creative collective housed in one of Escolta's old buildings. Composed mainly of artists, they created the Hub Make Lab, an incubation space meant for artists, entrepreneurs, and other creatives. And there's always something new to find at the Hub, from pop-up galleries to retail shops selling both vintage and fashion-forward clothing to carefully curated coffee shops. I find the whole space very characteristic of Manila itself, down to earth, spontaneous, and organic. Now we move on to Makati, the metro's business capital, which, in contrast to how organic Manila is, Makati is very deliberately and meticulously planned to project a very progressive image. And as a district that was born out of commerce, it has become synonymous to an aspirational lifestyle, very fast, very commercial, and sometimes very artificial. Despite that, what I find wonderful about Makati is how it integrates art into the mainstream consciousness. During this walk, I have seen various art dotting the landscape of Greenbelt Mall, a popular shopping destination. So people get to interact with art and it becomes part of their everyday experience. I also chanced upon an interactive art installation right outside the courtyard of the Ayala Museum. One part of the exhibit even requires you to peer through metal boxes to discover abstract forms within. And so you don't even have to enter the museum to enjoy a new exhibition, and it just makes for a great connection between art and the public. As a designer, Makati offers endless possibilities for sourcing. There is even a store that allows you to bring a piece of Parisian history home. There are pop up exhibits that feature cultural products coming from different Philippine regions. But much like everything else here, it is curated. Even history and culture isn't just expressed in the everyday, it is an advocacy. While bars may not be readily seen as part of the creative sector, I'll have to make certain exceptions, especially where craft beer bars are concerned. From interiors to graphic design and the brews themselves, they are as creative as they come. And for someone who loves her beer, this is where I socialize, collaborate, hold meetings, and sometimes draw inspiration. But at what seems like a reversal, there is a part of Makati that is less known to many but is pretty known in design circles. This is Bangkal district where thrift stores selling antiques and vintage items abound, and it is a place where streets are narrow and stores are akin to the shop houses of Manila. There is no formal planning here, no image to project, yet it thrives because of its authenticity. So I'm leaving you with this image of a city, a picture of progress, of order, of tall buildings over this vast landscape. And as you may have guessed, this is Manila. The two cities of Manila and Makati, however seemingly disparate, have more things in common than they would care to know. And they're always going to be linked because of a shared history and the people that live, work, and play in them. And yes, Manila may be a mess, but it can be a beautiful mess.